So imagine you are at the controls of a high-speed train.
Okay.
The engine is humming, you're crushing the competition, everything feels completely unstoppable.
Right.
But then you look out the windshield and realize the tracks ahead of you they just end, completely disappear.
Oh, man.
Right. But there's a brand new set of tracks like 100 feet to your left. So the question is, how do you jump that gap without derailing the entire train?
Yeah, and that gap, that's what we call a technology chasm. It's one of those rare, terrifying moments where the actual rules of gravity in an industry just suddenly flip.
And today, we are looking at the exact playbook billionaires use to make that jump. Our source material for this deep dive is a transcript from the March 2026 AI Investor Summit featuring Richard N. Barton. And I mean, if you don't recognize the name, you definitely know his work.
Oh, absolutely.
He's the founder and CEO of Expedia, founder and co-chairman of Zillow, and he's been a longtime board member at Netflix. Basically, he has been at the epicenter of multiple digital revolutions.
Which is exactly what makes him the perfect guide for what we're doing today. Our mission is to extract the, behind-the-scenes reality of how Barton navigated the internet and mobile chasms.
Right.
But more importantly, we're going to break down the exact mechanism, like his specific 5-point rubric that he uses right now to determine who survives the ultimate chasm we're all staring down, which is artificial intelligence.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand the AI jump, we have to start by looking backward. The anatomy of a chasm doesn't really change, even if the tech does. So we are going back to a dinner in 2001.
Very famous dinner.
Exactly. Barton is the CEO of Expedia, which just recently went public. And he gets this invite from Reed Hastings, the founder of Netflix, who is, gearing up for his own IPO and wants Barton on his board.
And we have to remember, at this point, Netflix is strictly a DVD by mail service.
Right, those little red envelopes.
Yeah, exactly.
And Barton was actually a subscriber. So he sits down at this dinner, looks Hastings in the eye, and tells him his core product is just doomed. He literally calls the DVD a dead man walking.
Wow.
Which is, an incredibly blunt thing to say to a founder who's actively trying to recruit you to help take his company public.
It really is. But Hastings' response is what makes this whole story legendary.
Yeah.
Because he didn't get defensive at all. He just looked at Barton and said, I didn't call the company DVD by mail flicks. I called it Netflix.
Okay, I have to push back on that narrative a little bit. Because, it sounds absolutely brilliant in hindsight, but how much of that was actual mapped out strategic foresight versus just, picking a cool broad name that sounded futuristic?
That's a fair question.
Like in 2001, it took half an hour to download a single MP3. Did Hastings really know how they were going to jump to streaming, or did he just know that eventually they had to?
See, that is the crucial tension of any chasm. You rarely know the exact physics of the jump ahead of time. Hastings probably didn't know the exact bandwidth infrastructure or like the compression algorithms that would actually make streaming viable.
Right.
But what he did possess was an overarching vision, that North Star that the name Netflix provided. He positioned the brand identity for what Barton calls a delayed internet shockwave.
Ah, a delayed shockwave.
Exactly. He knew the physical form factor would die, so he built a company culture completely unattached to the DVD, even while it was still generating, 100% of their revenue.
Which takes incredible discipline. But anticipating a chasm years in advance is one thing. Reacting to an unexpected one in real time is a totally different beast. And that brings us to the mobile chasm and this really dramatic moment at Zillow.
Oh, yeah. That's where 2007.
Right. So Zillow is only a year old at this point. They launched in 2006, and they are instantly dominating desktop real estate searches.
Mostly because of the Zestimate.
Exactly. They introduced this incredibly provocative feature, the Zestimate, which puts a public price tag on everyone's house. It was driving massive traffic. They were definitively winning their category. And then Steve Jobs introduces the iPhone 1.0.
Which is just a textbook example of a landscape-altering shockwave. Barton, his co-founder Lloyd, and their CTO David Bile instantly realized the stakes. The transcript notes they all went out, bought iPhones on day one, and literally threw their beloved BlackBerries in the trash.
Wait, they just tossed them?
Literally threw them away. They were struggling with the new soft keyboard and everything, but they had to adapt.
And think about the business terror of what happens next. They realize that, sure, sitting at a computer desk looking at Zillow.com is great, but walking around a neighborhood on a Sunday afternoon holding a device that physically knows where you are and shows you the houses around you?
That is 10 times better.
10 times better.
Yeah.
It changes the entire context of the product. So they call what they describe as a code red.
Yeah, they pivoted the entire company toward mobile.
Right. And here's where it gets really interesting for anyone running a business, because they were winning the desktop game. Calling a code red there to abandon a winning strategy, it's like leading the Super Bowl at halftime, recognizing the other team is getting a little faster and deciding to just completely change your playbook and fire your quarterback.
It's crazy risky.
It is. The
Mhm.
willingness to self-disrupt is terrifying. I mean, most executives would just say, "Oh, let's build a mobile-friendly website and see what happens."
Yeah, but half measures don't get you across a chasm. Zillow went all in on building an unproven mobile app, and the execution had to be incredibly aggressive.
Because it was so early. Right.
Apple and Google didn't even offer map rendering services for third-party developers yet.
Oh, wow, I forgot about that.
Yeah, so Zillow's engineers had to build their own mapping architecture from scratch just to make the app work.
And because they pulled that off, Apple noticed. They actually invited the Zillow team down to Cupertino, and Steve Jobs personally demonstrated the Zillow app on stage during a product launch. That one aggressive pivot skyrocketed Zillow from being a strong player to the undisputed #1 in the category.
So we have the blueprint here. You need a leader willing to cannibalize their own success and an organization capable of building the bridge while they are basically falling.
Right.
And Barton takes those specific lessons from the internet and mobile eras and applies them directly to today. He actually built a 5-point grading rubric to evaluate who is going to survive the AI revolution.
Let's get into that. The first filter on Barton's rubric is the necessity of an engaged founder.
Yes.
He argues you need someone at the helm who is paranoid, product-obsessed, and entirely willing to hit that big red button when a threat emerges. And he points to his own history with his co-founder Lloyd as proof.
Right, they go way back.
Yeah, they were engineering students together at Stanford. There's actually a fun note in the transcript here that Lloyd worked at Microsoft at age 14 just because his mom and Bill Gates' mom were friends.
That's hilarious.
But the point is, they were builders. They spun Expedia out of Microsoft, and when they started Zillow, they funded the first $5 million out of their own pockets.
They have real skin in the game. But, this brings up a valid concern. We hear a lot about founder mode being the ultimate advantage lately, but what happens when a paranoid founder hits the red button and pivots the company right off a cliff? Because being engaged doesn't guarantee you are actually right.
That's exactly what I was thinking. If you panic and call a code red for every new shiny technology that comes along, you just end up destroying your own company.
Which is exactly why the engagement has to be paired with the second part of Barton's rubric.
Okay, what's point 2?
You need an engaged founder, yes, but they have to be steering a very specific type of ship. Barton looks for companies that deal in big, complicated transactions.
Big, complicated transactions. Let's unpack what he means by that. Because the transcript says he's looking for high-dollar transactions that take a long time to complete. The processes need to be emotionally entertaining, visually engaging, but crucially, they need to be highly recursive.
And recursive is the key word here. We need to define what that actually looks like in practice.
Okay.
Buying a house is the perfect example. It is not a linear one-click purchase on Amazon.
Definitely not.
You make an offer, the inspection fails, you renegotiate, the financing terms change, the appraisal comes in low, and you loop all the way back to negotiations. It is just a messy, heavily regulated, emotionally fraught loop.
Okay, but why is that a good thing? Because when I read the rubric, I was honestly confused. We are always told that friction in business is bad. You want a seamless user experience.
Right, usually.
So how does this intense complexity actually defend a company? Like, is the messiness itself the moat?
Yes, the messiness is absolutely the moat. Barton uses a great phrase for this. He talks about the danger of being meta-ed.
Being meta-ed.
Right, meaning suffering a horizontal platform assault from a tech giant like Meta, Google, or Apple.
A horizontal assault, meaning a giant company deciding to just, copy your core feature and offer it to their billions of users.
Exactly. Those giants, they thrive on frictionless, massive scale. They want algorithms that serve ads to billions of people with zero human interaction.
Right.
What they absolutely do not want is to get bogged down in the highly specific, deeply regulated, weeks-long recursive nightmare of closing a real estate transaction. The sheer mud of the process acts as a shield. The tech giants will look at a complex, recursive industry and just say, no thanks, the margins aren't worth the headache.
Okay, that makes sense. If your business is simple, they will crush you. But if your business requires navigating a labyrinth, they leave you alone.
Exactly.
But a moat is completely useless if there's nothing filling it. Which leads us to what actually makes this defensible in the age of AI. Barton's third requirement is what he calls a unique alloy of data.
And this is where we really start talking about the mechanics of artificial intelligence. Barton explains that Zillow thrives because it mixes commodity data with highly proprietary data.
So commodity data is the stuff anyone can scrape, right? Like public tax records, square footage, school districts, that kind of thing.
Spot on. But proprietary data is what they capture internally from both consumers and real estate professionals actively using their platform.
And the text says this unique alloy acts as food for an insatiably hungry AI. But we really need to get into why this matters. Because if generic AI, like, the large language models everyone uses is a public library where anyone can check out a book, Barton's proprietary data is like having the private diaries of everyone in town.
That is a perfect analogy for how model training actually works. A generic LLM is trained on Reddit posts, Wikipedia, and just public internet text. It learns how to talk like a human.
Right.
But it does not know what actually causes a real estate deal to close on a Tuesday in Omaha.
Yeah, it has no context for that.
Exactly. When Zillow feeds its AI, it isn't just feeding it text, it is feeding it behavioral feedback loops. It sees that, hey, when an agent responds within 5 minutes with a specific type of financing option, the deal likelihood goes up 20%.
So the AI isn't just generating, like, an email draft. It is predicting high-stakes, real-world outcomes based on data that literally no one else on Earth has access to.
Slot on.
If you are a startup trying to compete, you can buy the best off-the-shelf AI in the world, but it will hallucinate and fail because it just doesn't have those private diaries.
Right. And where do those private diaries actually come from? They are generated by the fourth critical element in the rubric, which is hidden depths of industry integration.
Right, the iceberg metaphor.
Yeah, Barton loves this metaphor.
We all know that 90% of an iceberg's mass is underwater, and Barton says a chasm crossing company operates the exact same way. When you or I open a real estate app to look at, mansions we can't afford.
As we all do.
Right, we're just looking at the tiny tip of the iceberg poking above the surface.
The consumer-facing app is really just the bait.
Exactly. Because beneath the surface, the company's software is operating as the actual nervous system for the industry professionals. It's the CRM for the real estate agents. It's the workflow software for the loan officers. It is deeply insinuated into their daily digital lives.
And Barton points out that this isn't just a real estate phenomenon. He actually compares this dynamic to companies like Shopify, Uber, and Airbnb.
How so?
Well, think about it. Shopify isn't just a digital storefront. It's inventory management, tax calculation, and shipping logistics. Uber isn't just a button you push for a ride. It's dynamic driver routing and algorithmic surge pricing. They are the underlying infrastructure of the industry.
I want you, listening right now, to really think about your own company or your own career. Look at the products you're building. Are you operating mostly above water? Are you just a shiny interface, a clever marketing campaign, or a thin wrapper around a generic AI? Or are you actually embedded in the boring, highly complex underwater workflows of your clients? Because if you are only on the surface, the AI chasm is going to swallow you.
It's a brutal reality check, honestly. Because if you don't own the workflow, you don't generate the proprietary data.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the proprietary data, your AI has no advantage. It all connects.
Which brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. If you have the complex transactions, the unique data, and the underwater integration, it produces what Barton calls a fortress brand. This is his fifth and final metric: command of the consumer funnel.
Yeah, a fortress brand means you totally control your own destiny. You are not paying a toll to a search engine or a social media feed to acquire your customers. They type your name directly into their browser or they open your app natively.
And the financial reality of this is just staggering. The transcript highlights that companies with this kind of fortress brand specifically, he names Netflix, Airbnb, and Zillow, they only spend 20 to 33% of what their direct competitors spend on sales and marketing.
Yeah, it's incredible.
They are spending 1/5 to 1/3 of the money just to acquire a single customer. So what does this all mean for you?
It means they don't have to shout. If your software is the structural foundation of the industry, if the agents have to use you to manage their workflow and the consumers know you have the most accurate data because of that workflow, the gravity of the product just does the marketing for you.
It creates a self-sustaining loop. The underwater mass pulls the surface brand forward.
Exactly. And when you synthesize all of this, the engaged founder, the messy complexity, the proprietary data, the underwater software, and the fortress brand, that you arrive at Barton's ultimate conclusion about the current landscape.
Which is?
If a company fits this specific 5-point profile, Artificial intelligence is not a threat to their existence. It is a massive accelerant.
It takes all those complex, friction-heavy workflows and just turbocharges them. And Barton isn't just giving this as a theoretical lecture to a room full of investors. He is actively putting his own money on the line.
He really is.
He shares at the very end of the summit that he has been aggressively buying Zillow stock in his personal portfolio in the weeks leading up to this 2026 event. He literally states that he is more fired up about the opportunity in front of the company right now than at any point in their entire 20-year history.
And that is the ultimate proof of conviction. When a founder who has successfully navigated the internet chasm and the mobile chasm is heavily buying in right at the edge of the AI chasm, I mean, it means he fundamentally believes the tracks are going to align on the other side.
And that is the core takeaway for you today. Take Barton's 5-point rubric and run your own life through it. Look at your career trajectory. Look at the company you work for. Look at the stocks in your portfolio. Are you secretly relying on DVDs while the whole world is quietly shifting to streaming?
Right.
Are you just floating on the surface of your industry, or are you doing the hard, complex work to embed yourself deeply into the underwater workflows? The people who survive technology chasms are the ones who make themselves structurally indispensable before the ground starts shaking.
Those are definitely the questions that define survival. But looking at this big picture, there's one final, almost philosophical question we have to consider.
What's that?
We've spent this entire deep dive talking about surviving chasms by jumping over them, by recognizing the gap, calling a code red, and, executing a leap.
Right, abandoning the old tracks for the new ones.
But as artificial intelligence becomes infinitely hungry for data and increasingly capable of handling all of those complex, messy underwater tasks we just discussed, is AI actually just another chasm to jump across?
Oh, wow.
Or, given its nature, is AI eventually going to become the ground we walk on, effectively eliminating the concept of technological chasms altogether? Because if AI can autonomously adapt to new paradigms in real time, the tracks might never end again. Something to think about the next time you hear an executive announce a code red.